That is James MENNIE over at the Montreal Gazette. And Jim, they wasted no time, they being the Parti Québécois, Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon in particular, in going after Premier Legault on this whole immigration letter to Justin Trudeau. I want you to hear the clip. So this is Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon. For people who had not heard, now you have Premier Legault sending a letter to Justin Trudeau saying it's time, you have to stem the flow of immigrants who want to be paid for the money we have already put out, to which he said this.
I've been warning the Premier 2 years ago, saying this is very serious. I'm offering you my collaboration, but please right away show your leadership, but be clear on the fact that you're totally not in agreement with that way of doing things, and do something.
Jim, he offered him his help, but apparently François Legault chose to ignore Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon.
Well, I think the big story here, guys, is that sometimes I hate using sports metaphors, but sometimes, when you have a team that always beats another team, you say that team's got that team's number. The Bruins have the Habs number. I don't know how they're going to get out of this. I saw this news of the letter, and I think we all did. We saw it today. And I thought, well, where the heck is this coming from? Because this is hardly new. There wasn't a big chunk of news in what Legault has been complained about in the letter to Trudeau. He's been saying this quite literally for years.
Right.
And then I thought, oh my goodness, look, yesterday, Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon just walked up one side of Legault and down the other, saying that he has, as we saw, as we heard in the clip, that he hasn't been doing a good job. He's just been posturing. He hasn't really done anything about the entire problem with asylum seekers and Quebec's inability to keep up with the people who keep flooding over the border. And I thought for sure, well, when I got this emailed letter, as we all did, we got an email from the Premier's chief communications officer with the letter in it, and I thought, okay, he's going to send us this letter to show that he's on the case. And that, Plamondon is just blowing hot air, and he's got the situation in hand. But then you look at the letter and you discover the date of the letter is yesterday. So please don't tell me this is not cause and effect. Please don't tell me that we have a new law of political physics in Quebec, which is, for every action the PQ engages in, there is a reaction from the CAQ. It really looks like Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon has got François Legault on a leash. And I think it's very, very I think we ignore this development at our peril. Because certainly for English Quebec, we've seen what can happen when the Premier thinks he's being outdone by the Parti Québécois on one particular issue, on perhaps the perceived perception of French. But now we're talking about asylum seekers. Now we're talking about immigration. And don't get me wrong, Saint-Pierre Plamondon is doing a great job. He is doing the job of an official opposition leader, okay? And he's doing it very well with all of their 4 seats in the National Assembly. Right. He doesn't have the government just keeping it on its toes. He has got it punch drunk in the corner. There is nothing that Legault seems able to do. He just flails away at him. He throws up these last-minute excuses. But I think it's very, very interesting and does not bode very well for the resumption of the National Assembly at the end of this month to see that somebody who's got 4 seats in the National Assembly is pretty much dictating the political agenda of somebody who's got 89. There's something wrong with that picture, and I'm really wondering how Monsieur Legault intends to dig himself out of that.
It's interesting,
about
Jim.
the Liberals.
Strategically, though, you stop and think about it. Maybe I'm looking at this the wrong way. If there's that equal reaction to everything the PQ does from the CAQ, the CAQ is in essence giving them oxygen by reacting to everything they're doing instead of ignoring them, which is typically what they would have done up until now. So strategically, that seems kind of the wrong way to go.
But as I said, this is the other thing. They're tough to ignore when they're behaving like an official opposition. They're tough to ignore when they have the attention, not because, as I've joked before, Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon can actually hold a press conference without setting someone on fire or can actually say something that makes sense. It's the fact that he knows where to hit them. He hits them hard. He hits them, and the timing is perfect. And this came up during the pre-session caucus for the PQ yesterday. And all of a sudden, you've got all of this focus on the head of the PQ and the reaction from Legault. And as far as I can tell, the only reaction Legault has made to this is indeed this letter. And as I say, if he wasn't taking this seriously, it's been a while since I got an email from the communications director of the Premier of Quebec, but every newsroom did. So I found that fascinating. And listen, I absolutely don't believe in his party's political agenda, but my hat's off to Monsieur Saint-Pierre Plamondon. He's doing an excellent job, much to the chagrin of François Legault. And perhaps the positive fallout for the rest of us is that more and more people, more and more francophones, more and more of the electorate are going to see that perhaps the spit and bubblegum facade that the CAQ has been for the past 5 years is beginning finally to crumble. And if you want to say, well, perhaps the alternative is the PQ, no, that's not going to happen, because the same Saint-Pierre Plamondon turned around and said, of course we're going to stick with separation. Yeah. He is not disdaining that. But when push comes to shove, that too is going to be his fall in terms of politics, because the number one item in his inventory, Quebecers aren't buying. But in the meantime, we're certainly benefiting from his political expertise.
Well, I still find myself asking, though, if he's acting like the official opposition, where is the official opposition?
I've stopped asking. Excuse me, Natasha. I've stopped asking questions about the Quebec Liberals because it's a waste of time. It's a waste of oxygen. Okay, so the very fact that you and I are talking about the head of the PQ, which I say has all of 4 seats in the National Assembly, speaks more about the role and the position and perhaps the future of the Quebec Liberal Party than I ever could.
To your point, though, Jim, the idea that Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon is gaining, we talked yesterday about the fact that there are more people now signed up to the PQ. Their memberships are up. I mean, not crazy up, but certainly more than any other party. But I wonder what you just said, if that's kind of overplaying your hand, right? To come out and criticize the government on immigration, fine, and you got a reaction, which is what you wanted. But then to bring up the idea of, yes, there will be an independence vote in our first mandate, why would you even throw that in the mix, knowing what, what our statistics tell us is something that most Quebecers are clearly not interested in? Why add that?
Because in the short term, and this was the immediate fallout from that statement, I may not agree with what he said, but by God, he's an honest man. And it's been a while since we've heard a Quebec politician stick to his or her guns ideologically when it came to either sovereignty or federalism or anything.
Indeed.
So you may not agree with the guy, but at least you know where he stands. And believe me, that still has some currency in politics.
Okay. I'm curious, too. You have Justin Trudeau in town. They have their big session, I guess. The Liberals will over the next few days. Managing to stay out of it. Did you hear him say anything about this immigration thing today?
No, not a word. Not a word. He's keeping his head down, but, they'll probably issue something at 7 o'clock tonight, or he may be scrummed on it, once the surfaces. I mean, the big story right now for Justin Trudeau, I think, is that his own ministers are sort of admitting that the immigration situation is a total mess, and that we are indeed bringing more people into the country than we can house, and all of a sudden, this shiny unicorn-strewn road looks like the road to hell, and there's going to have to be some damage control done. And I think in the short term, though, the best course for Mr. Trudeau is to keep his mouth shut and hope that either Pierre Poilievre says something even more ridiculous than usual, or he finds some golden excuse to sort of turn this around to his favor. But I got to tell you guys, I always used to refer to Justin Trudeau as dumb, stupid, lucky, but I think a lot of that dumb, stupid luck is running out.
James MENNIE at the Montreal Gazette. Jim, thank you. Appreciate it.
Adam,